Welcome to Chapter 9 of The Good Earth. As always, I will begin with a brief synopsis of the chapter, followed by some key points to pay attention to, and then finish off with some big ideas that the author is looking at, as well as asking some questions that I think are important to consider as you read the chapter. There are a few important events that take place in Chapter 9, but really it is just a slow progression of the famine after the raid on Wang Lung's home. This chapter gives a lot of description of what is happening in the village, and we get a feel for what their little society is suffering. In this chapter, it becomes clear that Wang Lung's uncle is getting food from somewhere, but we don't know where. The rumor is that he has turned to cannibalism, and that others have also started eating people as well. Whether or not this is true is never substantiated, but that is the power of rumor. Another tragedy which this chapter brings out is that there is something wrong with Wang Lung's daughter. Don't know what it is exactly, but it appears to be an intellectual disability. She is referred to as the little fool from here through the rest of the story. Ching turns out to be a pretty nice guy. He is racked with guilt over the home invasion and tries to help Wang Lung out by sharing with him the beans that he and his wife had saved for their last meal before they starved to death. Spoiler, Ching doesn't starve to death. Olan also gives birth to a child in this chapter. The child is a daughter, but dies. It is unclear if the child died due to complications with the pregnancy, due to malnutrition, or if Olan killed the child shortly after birth. Toward the end of the chapter, Wang Lung's uncle brings in men from the town to buy Wang Lung's property, but Wang Lung refuses to sell. Olan sells them the furniture and things that they do not need, but they refuse to sell the land or the farm tools. Some things to pay attention to include how Wang Lung treats his little gods during the time of famine. Also notice the behavior of Qing and of Wang Lung's uncle. Both of these characters are foreshadowed heavily in this chapter. Finally, one thing you might notice, but don't need to delve into deeply, would be that the timeline gets a little confusing. I do suggest glossing it over rather than being critical of it. So, one question I like to discuss when going over this chapter is land use and its importance. Obviously, we still use land today, but how has its use changed? And how has the importance of land changed? Is it more important, less important, or just differently important? What are some ways that land use varies from different countries, states, or regions? How is land important to you in your culture?